and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. I feel my image behind me is more wintry than normal, but then again, so's my beard. So, moving on to the discussion this evening, we're gonna dive right into it. We got an absolute truckload of stuff to talk about. Preseason game 1, a look ahead to preseason game 2. We're going to go a complete rundown on the injuries and whatnot. And as y'all saw from the thumbnail, no better time than the present to watch DZ squirm in his chair as he thinks about what life is going to be like without a starting left tackle that made the Pro Bowl. So with that in mind here, we got DZ over here to my right or left, depending on which way you are facing your screen. And down directly below, we have Jack Kenna, who is just reminding us all that he really does love the 49ers because they live rent-free in his head on a constant and regular basis, representing your Las Vegas Raiders. And we are still in search of a full-time Chiefs guy, although we have a few people that may be in the mix for that particular role, and we will go from there. But until that time, DZ, we're going to throw it over to you to get your take on the injury to your starting left tackle and maybe tie it together with the preseason game 1 in terms of what you saw or didn't see as a result.
Well, I guess let's just peel this Band-Aid off. Well, probably like the worst news possible because as a Charger fan, I see Slater as probably the best offensive player, outside of Justin. Like, he is the epitome. He was an up-and-coming guy, especially in the top left tackle ranks in the NFL. And he got paid, man. He got paid. I think he was like $92 million guaranteed, and the contract was 100 and something, over the course of 4 years. And he went down, non-contact. And when it happened, the beat reporters put out the video. There's some fans there that posted the videos, and I'm zooming, going frame by frame. And it almost looked like Zion tripped him, but then you're really analyzing it because this is before a statement has gone down. But it looked like he just went down non-contact. It was his plant leg as a left side. Chargers are taking a huge hit. I don't know what that means. And come to find out, it was a torn patella tendon, which is by all means probably the worst injury a football player can have. It was almost like we were hoping that it was an ACL or an MCL, something like that along those lines. I think the second worst would be probably an Achilles, I guess. All the Twitter docs came out because, other than the teams giving statements, they're not telling us anything, right? So this is where the Twitter docs come in, and there's a few that I kind of trust, I guess you could say, with quotations. And this is a crazy recovery, man. And it's like almost like a 50% chance that he doesn't even come back, or nowhere near the same level of play that we're used to seeing him play at. And it really puts the Chargers in a bind, but it doesn't. Luckily last year they drafted arguably one of the best, college left tackles, I guess, to come out in a long time. And that was Joe Alt, who they switched to right tackle, who played phenomenally at right tackle. But now they're asking him to jump back over on the left side that he played in college. So, they're throwing this kid a loop. But that, after researching this type of injury, I can confidently say that Joe Alt's going to be the left tackle of the Chargers for the future. I do not see Rashawn Slater coming back to being a left tackle. The most optimistic thing I could say for him is possibly becoming a right tackle or a right guard. And why I'm saying that is because that side wouldn't be his plant leg. And, in college, he did play on the right side of the line in college. But that's if he can come back. And, this is the timetable on this recovery is anywhere from like 6 to 12 months I've seen. And, these guys are large human beings. They're not like normal guys, 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's 6'4", 330 some odd pounds. It sucks, man, because he's a good guy. We know he was dealing with a lot in this offseason in his personal life. But let's see how they can transition going forward. In practice, they've had Joel on the left side, Zion, Bozeman, and I'm going to say because it's Sawyer and Pipkins. Pipkins has played right tackle for us in the past few seasons. Let's just say the right side of the line that was going to be the strength of this offense is no longer. And the reason I'm saying that is Mekhi Becton hasn't practiced since July 28th. He has been doing his own workouts in the facility, but he hasn't practiced with the team, going through walkthroughs and, live reps or anything like that. So
What's
now that
going
we
on
have nobody knows. Now, we do know that Mekhi Becton has had a myriad of injuries, to start his career out when he was with the Jets. Last season, he stayed relatively healthy. I think he missed 2 games. When we did sign him, I was extremely excited, but I knew his history. So I was like, okay, I'm not expecting this guy to play the whole season, 17-game season. Well, now I don't even know if we're going to have him week 1. But, and the coaches are saying it's something minor. Now, he has had surgically repaired knee. But if he's moving around, walking around, I'm thinking it's either soft tissue or maybe his knee's bothering him again, but nobody's come out to say what's wrong with him. So what we thought was going to be a much improved O-line coming into this season is looking more like a patch job, let's just say. I mean, there's still some solid guys on there, but, this is probably one of the reasons why Jim canceled a joint practice with the Rams. McVay, he came out from McVay before Jim could give a statement. McVay said they're canceling because they're too banged up. And Harbaugh said, that's true. We are too banged up to host a joint practice, which I hold joint practices super high. I think they're the most valuable thing you can do in preseason, even more so than the games. And he said it's also, they had that extra game as well, the Hall of Fame game. So there's that. But I'm losing my confidence. I was very excited coming into the season, but with some of this stuff that's going on this offseason, it's been a really rocky offseason, and then Naji Harris, I expect him to probably land on IR when the season starts. Yeah. I think his eye is still swollen shut. We don't know if his eye is swollen shut or that was an eye patch that we saw behind somebody's picture. If it's an eye patch, ship him to Las Vegas. But if I think it's just swollen, and then I've looked into some stuff about that, and if it's going on this long since the July 4th incident, right? I'm assuming there was some sort of retina, like a retina injury. So, they've got to be super careful about what they do with him, and it's yeah, man. You can and right now, like a lot of the fans, especially Charger fans, are like, "What's going on? Why aren't they telling us about these injuries?" Well, they don't have to tell us anything. They don't have to say anything. They're just like, "Oh, he's hurt. He's injured." They don't have to give us a timetable until I guess week 1 kicks off. But what it looks like right now, I'm not expecting him for week 1 against the Chiefs. And Mekhi Becton, I've got red flags going off. Now, I don't even know if he's going to be making it to week 1 against the Chiefs. And that's kind of a scary thought because also that's a long flight. And if any of you guys have been on a super long flight, you start getting inflamed. So if you've already dealing with an injury over a long flight, it's not going to do you any good, right? So, yeah, man.
You said your team's cursed. I don't know. It seems like every year.
Yeah, man.
What you guys put, you look at it on paper and you guys You just look at the roster and you're like, oh, damn, this is a good team. They're going to be tough. And I don't know what it is, but it's just like every year. Normally you get through a couple weeks. You
bring over a guy who's never missed a game or been hurt, right? Naji Harris. He comes back. He comes to LA, has a party with his family or whatever, and a defective firework blows up in his buddy's hand and jacks his eye up. It's you can't make this stuff up. And then Denzel Perryman gets arrested, right? And then Mike Williams retires. They bring back Keenan Allen. Like, it's just Rashawn Slater goes down after getting paid, like just a few days earlier, right? Signed the largest contract for an offensive lineman in the history of the NFL. A few days later, non-contact injury, goes down. And something I wanted to bring up is about Slater, going back to Slater, is, week 18 or week 17, last game was against the Raiders last year. He had discomfort in his knee, and they held him out of that game. So he didn't play against the Raiders in that finale game. And then I'm assuming that he probably felt better, or he took some pain meds or whatever, played that game against the Houston Texans. So I'm wondering is, from everything that I understand about the patella tendon, is there's been signs that his knee hasn't been like he's had some sort of discomfort in his knee for a while, because these things, I guess, don't just happen, right? Like an Achilles, we've seen players with Achilles just snap in a game, and we watch their calf bounce up and down on their leg. Those just happen, right? Or an ACL. But a patella tendon, supposedly there's signs, and the only way to tell is through an MRI. But, he got paid, and the only thing I could think is, they've got so much invested in him that they're probably going to do everything in their power, I would hope and I would assume, to get him back. I would think it would be stem cells and whatnot going forward, but it's going to be a long road to recovery for him. And hopefully we can get him back, but I don't see him as our left tackle anymore. And that's just me being, I guess, real.
Yeah, when did you hear that? I did not know that until this minute, so I didn't follow it. I've been busy, like, doing my insurance exams. I have to do that every other year, and it takes me 4 days to get through it. So I've been 100% wired, doing tests. So when did that news come out? That's crazy.
About Slater?
Yeah.
It was sometime last week.
Oh, cow. I knew he got hurt, but I didn't know it was that devastating.
It was after our last show.
It was just after our last show, and he just went down hard. But yeah. So this is the interesting piece there, right? Is this kind of highlights the incentive structure, which is Slater's knee could have been entirely preventable if he was able to be honest about symptoms and other elements that he could have then proactively addressed.
I guess the only way would have been rest. There were micro tears, apparently. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't understand this completely, but I know what you're saying. I 100% like,
let's look at it this way, right? Which is, he could have gone for an MRI, found out he had the precursors to a potential, obviously not guaranteed, but a potential tear like he has.
Right.
And he could have then gone through this offseason we'll call it needed steps to proactively address this the entirety of the offseason. Got his contract, had some provisions put in pertaining to the knee that if it doesn't heal back to the doctor's satisfaction, that maybe there's some sliding scale incentives of some kind. But the problem that these NFL teams have is they're not even going to pay him max dollar with incentives, like with the injury incentives. They're just going to try to outright lowball a guy that may have health issues.
Well, I think that was the language I was holding up the contract, because if you remember, he was a hold in for a little bit. So he came out to OTAs and minicamp, and then, he did some stuff and then he became a hold in. And then the story was that he had a blister, which he probably did have a blister on one of his feet. Who knows? That was really painful. And so we are all assuming, okay, there's some language. They're negotiating in the background. So they're like, let's hold him out. But, going back to saying week 17 where his knee felt uncomfortable, I'm wondering, like, did they get an MRI then? Okay, like our left tackle's knee's not feeling good. Let's get him an MRI or something. Let's check this out.
Well, and also, do you think, what was the point of even playing them against the Raiders last year in the last game? You guys are already in the playoffs. So why would you want to play, potential all-stars anyways to get hurt going into the playoffs? So then it makes me like what kind of Richie's saying, well, did the team really know? Did you saying, okay, my knee's kind of feeling wonky, and the team doctors, when you're going into a contract year or even to the playoffs, to not want to know what's going on?
Yeah. I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. But, you want to believe that teams do their due diligence before they hand over 90 some odd $1 million, right? You want to believe they know what they're doing, right? Like the front office guy, and last time I checked, I think he's the same guy. I'm not talking about the GM. I'm talking about another guy that deals with the financials. The same guy that's been there forever. But, this is also, we've had this similar situation with J.C. Jackson. He came in, he had that extra bone in his foot, came back, and he also tore his patella tendon as well. But, yeah, man, it's sickening. Like, when this happened, I was just like, you've got to effing be kidding me. It's like one of those nauseous things. And then selfishly, as a fan, you're just like, I step away and I'm like, okay, he's human, so he probably feels terrible about this. It's another reason why I think, like, if I look at it from the fans, like look at it from the players' view, like, yes, man, these guys should get their money because there's no guarantee for tomorrow. But then you look at it from a fan and a team aspect, and you're like, holy crap, we could be screwed for quite a while because this is going to be on the books, cap space wise. So it's that balance. But, at first I was just mad and just, like Richie or like Jack just said, we're cursed. Yeah, man. I'm like, this team is cursed. And it happened. Like, I think I was saying this to somebody kind of like jokingly, but, Denzel Perryman and Keenan Allen are the last two San Diego Chargers, right? And Keenan Allen was on the team. So Denzel gets arrested. Keenan signs. I think it was at the very day that he showed up to practice is when Slater goes down. I'm just like, this is like a horror script or something, for a team. And, I just feel bad, man, because they were like trying to invest, like, the O-line is the tip of the spear and we're going to improve everything. And it's just kind of looking what they did. They kept that left guard and that center, which really kind of ticks off the fan base because they were a big weak point. So they're running it back with those two. And, mind you, they didn't take the fifth-year option on with Zion, so that's a good sign. Bozeman they extend, which is mind-boggling because he was horrible last season, especially in pass pro. And then, it's just
I also find it kind of interesting, in one aspect is like the Raiders, re-signed Crosby early and they got him at $36 million.
Right.
And then, I look at, what happened to your player, and it just kind of goes to Jerry Jones. So I know they're not the AFC West, but about signing guys, because it plays a part now, because it happened to your player. And, you got two other, defensive ends that signed, like Myles Garrett and Watt, like 40, they're like, they got like 40 million. So the Raiders saved like 4 million. And now we're going to be looking at their defensive end. They're talking 42 million because they waited late. And then Jerry Jones comes out there and says, well, you never know about injuries. And I think, everybody in the NFL was looking at him going, dude, you're an old fool.
Real quick.
Why would you not try to save millions upon millions of dollars and get that contract early? But now, looking at what Slater if he were to, I don't think he's going to play in any preseason games or do anything, but if it was him and he's not going to play for a year and a half, well, then you don't have to sign him to that big contract, record-breaking contract. So I just kind of find it fascinating how like different ownership groups do different things. And, and actually I had to, say Jerry might have made a smart move, because if he'd done that and signed him and he goes down, then you're going to be in the same position kind of where you're at with, your team. So I don't know.
You're talking about, I don't know. I kind of got lost with what you're saying, Jack. I apologize, but the one thing I do. Okay, yeah, he just wants off that team. Jerry's not going to pay him. He'll probably end up paying him, but that's a a very cancer situation in Dallas, and I don't really care about the Cowboys. But I get what you're saying. One thing about the Spanos, they're not the wealthiest, but they will take care of their players, especially their homegrown players. They have this reputation of being a cheap organization because they moved up to LA and they're in somebody else's stadium, sharing a stadium. But, they've made quite a few of these players the highest at their respective positions, and I hate trying to say like I'm defending them, but this was like the right move. Slater was the guy to pay. He's a dude you drafted. He'd protect Justin's blind side. You could put that guy on an island, and he did a great job. This is just, there's something going on in the background. This is a freak accident that probably was something going on with him that was underreported, I guess, let's just say. And yeah, man, and got to go forward. You got to go forward, and you got to figure it out. But what Spanish part go raise the rent? Sorry, Paul. Everybody's rent's being raised these days. But so yeah, and now I'm like wondering in preseason, like, do we see the starters? Because I think that was supposed to be the plan, is running the offense. Like I know the Broncos did. I know the Broncos ran their first O and their first DA out. I don't know if the Raiders did. Well, yeah, I think the Raiders did. I think I saw Gino out there, right, Jack?
Yeah, well, Gino played the first series.
Okay, so the Chargers against the Saints didn't play any starters really. More rookies. I mean, they played depth guys, things like that, but they didn't play the starters. And I'm wondering if they're planning to, because I think that was the plan. They didn't really do it last season due to Justin's injury coming into the season last year. So I'm wondering if they do it. I don't think they do it against the Rams, because I believe already came out that Taylor Heineke is taking that. Looks like Trey Lance banged his hand up against the Saints. So it would have to be that last game against the Niners. So we'll see. But yeah.
I'm sorry, bro.
Sucks.
Never want to see him get hurt, especially not a guy like him.
So I'm going to quickly give an injury update on my Broncos, so we can get right into the week 1 preseason and get right into those weeds too. So the main injury news for my Denver Broncos is a depth piece at the defensive line, Matt Henningsen. He is, I'd say, an above average rotational guy, but not a starter. He is the guy that you're likely going to have as the last guy in your rotation on the defensive line, kind of for my team. For those that don't follow the Broncos, just to kind of give you some context as to the role he typically plays. This now opens up really the role for Wazirike, who had a decent game actually in the first preseason game for my Denver Broncos. Not great, but he was kind of like right in the middle, like he was not amazing, not garbage, just kind of like right in the middle. So it's going to be a really interesting thing. We cut him injury cut today from the Denver Broncos, or yesterday rather. I suspect that at some point later on this evening, if not already, I haven't checked, that he will then return back to my team on the injured reserve, and he will live there for the remainder of the season. He has a torn Achilles, just for the point of reference. I didn't mention the specifics there, but again, you're dealing with a guy who's in the upper echelon of weight in terms of for a physical human being. 6'3", 6'4", kind of between 280 and 310 kind of deal. So he's a large human being. And when you deal with any kind of soft tissue like that, so whether it be MCL, ACL, Achilles, or in your case, DZ, as we were just talking about Slater there with the tendon and everything, you're dealing with a very lengthy, long road to recovery because those dudes are just built different. They're just their body mass is I don't know how else to put it. Their body mass is just substantial. Like there's just so much leverage that they're putting on their body in terms of when they're moving around. So something to keep in mind in terms of what we're looking at. So that's kind of where my Denver Broncos are at right now. I haven't been able to get recent news from my Denver Broncos, but Henningsen is the most recent in terms of injuries. With that in mind, Jack, do you want to maybe kick us off on how your team did in the first preseason game?
Yeah, well, you're talking injuries. Raiders, the good news here, there isn't any. Again, the only thing that kind of happened was, a few weeks ago with Lonnie Johnson, their starting free safety went down and they signed Terrell Edmonds, who was a first-round draft pick from the Steelers like 7 years ago. He floated around on a bunch of teams. Yep. And, he's been on a few practice squads too. So not going to move the needle very much. At least he's got some experience. This game was tough, playing against Seattle. I mean, you go out there, you look at the starting line, and the first carry, that Genty got was like for 4 yards, and then after that, after the first series, you put in your second stringers, and he ended up with like 3 carries for like, I don't know, -3 yards or something like that. So kind of a rough outing. It was a rough outing for pretty much the whole offensive line. I mean, they just did not look good. That first half was just bad. Seattle was just taking it to them. And, it made a lot of Raider fans like myself nervous, going, wow, this is what we're going to get. And we have 2 starters. We had 2 starters going into the third quarter. And again, it's the starters, it was interesting just the fact that it was Jordan Meredith, again, moved position, going to center, and JPJ playing at right guard. And, I got to give it to my boy 805. Oh, and by the way, I got to do this too. So I got to salute Gord, Sacktown, Kev, Robert P, Ed Winchell, Nav93, What the F, Ardell, and Kona. I'm only my first beer, bro. So just wanted to get kind of caught up with everybody on that. It's like, the nation is kind of going, wow, why are we doing these switchings? Like everyone is saying, no, we can just leave JPJ where he's at. Leave Meredith where he's at. Yes, he might be a little bit smaller, but he played pretty good last year. So why change it up? So I think right now I'm starting to feel like it's not even almost these guys. I feel like it's almost more their offensive line coach, which is Brendan Carroll, the son of Pete Carroll. And I'm like, do you know what you're doing? I mean, did you get this job because you're the son, of the head coach? Because I'm not impressed. I really was not impressed in the way this offensive line play at all. And it just looks sloppy. Hey, what's up, Dark? And then it's like, it just looks sloppy. They weren't getting much going on. And then it's like the defensive side was kind of the same way in the beginning of the game. The missed tackles is a huge thing for this game. There was 13 missed tackles. Yeah, that is way too many missed tackles. So I know the NFL doesn't tackle like the way they used to tackle, but they need to figure something out. They need to take better angles or do something that's on there. So the first half was just a disaster for the Raiders, and they look horrible. I was actually watching on someone else's pod. You're listening to it, I should say, and I ended up just saying, "Forget it. I'm done with this. I'll wait until the replay comes out because I'm getting kind of ticked off." Like how DZ's, going over injuries. I'm like going over just the plays. It looks. I know it's a preseason game. I know it's the first preseason game. We got new guys all over the place, and it's going to be kind of expected, but I had a little bit more expectations just based on the coaching staff that we have in place. And Pete said he did keep it very vanilla, which they did. But the second half was definitely a little bit different than the first half. But then again, now we got our third stringers in there. They got their third stringers in there. So we lost the matchup with the second stringers who played the first half. But going into the second half, things kind of changed. There was some good play from, and I'll give a couple names. Miller, the quarterback, he had a nice drive. I mean, Aiden O'Connell, for being, okay, he's in year 3. He's had 3 different coaches, 3 different offensive coordinators. Everything he's had has been brand new every year. But
hold on.
But wait, hold on. I'm not done. But I will say this, for a guy who has that much playing experience and being a starter, when you take Cam Miller, his first game ever looks way better than Aiden O'Connell. So there's going to be a quarterback, controversy there. But what did you want to say, Richie?
You redeemed yourself at the end.
Well, that's why I said I need to finish.
So you redeemed yourself at the end. You were almost going down a direction that I don't think was going to be becoming of you and or play well for the future. I was simply trying to protect your reputation.
Oh yeah, I just had to finish it. So
here, and let me just quickly tie that off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tremendous amount of folks within Raider Nation that are completely high and delusionally high, in my opinion, on AOC 12. At the end of the day, the best quarterbacks in the league outright take the job. Like, there is no, I don't know, I'm not sure. They just take the job to a point where it's like, okay, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just got to do it. Like, here's an
example. I hope we see
right?
more of Cam Miller, though. I'll tell you that. I really like what that kid looked like.
And so the true testament of Pete Carroll, and this is what he, by the way, Pete Carroll's known for doing this as well. To be clear, Jack, like, you're in relatively good hands overall, which is he will absolutely kick AOC 12 to third string and have Miller play 2 full quarters or even 2.5 full quarters. And he'll do so like next game if he feels like he wants to, because AOC 12 had his opportunity to show out and kind of prove to Pete Carroll that he's the guy that should remain as like the number 2 QB and not be moved. And if AOC 12 played as I believe I saw on film, he did not only everything that he should not have done as a quarterback that should actually know better, but he then allowed the dude to come after him to kind of show him out and up, plainly. Like, it's not even like, oh, gee, I'm not sure. I have some feedback on my Denver Broncos, which is not particularly favorable for a lot of Broncos fans. And again, my take on my Broncos, which is going to be rather aggressive, which might surprise quite a number of folks. Even though my team won like 30-9, my comments are far more harsh than they are complimentary of my team. But AOC 12 should have taken it. AOC 12 should have said, this is my old team. How dare you bring in Geno Smith, and should have elevated his game. Instead, he crumbled like a cheap tent.
Oh, he did. It's like, other guys that, like veterans like Thayer Munford. I'm like, wow, that dude needs to just go. I mean, he looked horrible. It's like, okay, you've been in the league, we signed you to, after your rookie contract, signed you to another 1 year. Hey, show it what you got. And he's been a starter on his team forever. And you figure if you're playing against number 2s, you've been a starter, and he was a turnstile. I mean, absolute turnstile. What's up, Mranovich? Salute, brother. But it's like it was just that combination of an immobile quarterback and an offensive line that just couldn't seem to get their stuff together. And then, and going on the defensive side, and no excuses. You got to think about it. They had 2 returning players from last year on that defense, and really 3. But one of them, in Kuntz, didn't play all last year. So you only got 2 returning players There's no chemistry, on that defensive side. And, I looked at, again, and I got to give shout out to 805. He's not in the chat, but I watched, he does a lot of tape. And, a lot of Raider fans go and watch his stuff. And he put on some tape of Tyree Wilson. Again, you're the number 7 pick overall in the draft, and you're the starter. And then it's like, okay, when you're going to do a rush, he goes down in the stance. When he's going to slide over, to try to, come inside, he's standing on 2 legs and barely touches the ground with his fingers. So he's like telegraphing exactly what he's going to do. I mean, it's like so obvious. It's like, really? You've been in the league this long? Rob Leonard, who's actually a really good defensive line coach, you haven't figured that one out to get him to change his stance? And we still haven't seen a secondary thing besides a bull rush. I mean, that's another guy after this year.
So, Jack, I have a question for you on that one, too.
Yeah, go for it.
You're saying Leonard is a great line coach. Okay, cool. Based on what?
I just like what he's done over the years.
Based on
I
what?
think he based on what I think he's got some of his guys to overplay.
Like who?
Based on who? Like Latu. I mean, the guys that they picked up, last year.
So I'm just going to look at other teams. Like I would argue that the D-line coach for the Chargers got more out of less than your D-line coach did last year.
That's a possibility. I didn't watch all the Chargers. Now I get my information from DZ.
And so no, but my general point is that there are others in the league and other D-line coaches in the league that have done better with less at their disposal. And so my only point here is, generally speaking, one of the challenges that the Raiders have had, one of them, is that the D-line for the Raiders have, if you're going to be honest, and this is the thing, is that you have all the talent in various levels within the defense. I just don't think that it's been leveraged properly. And I think part of that is D-line coaches, and also the defensive coordinators. But you have truly struggled to find a guy who can pair with Crosby, do so consistently, and coach up depth to then further bolster the other positions on the D-line. And I do put some of that, and you have to put some of that on the defensive line coach. So, like, who are the other guys that are absolutely showing out? Now, Kuntz did have.
Well, I will talk about a couple guys.
But Kuntz in his first year, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Kuntz? I think it was Kuntz. Had a good splash and then got hurt. So injuries can't be helped. You got to let the guys develop, right? And so if he got hurt, he's got to come back and then show back out again. So let's see what the dude can actually do. Fair enough. That's cool. Totally get it. Wilkins was an acquisition by your team. He wasn't a dude that was coached up by your team. And he literally kissed a dude on the way out the door. So he's no longer even with your team at all. So I had to, like, it just is what it is. Like, you know, the script writes itself on that one. And so, you know, he's no longer with your team. But you've had, look, I am even being overly critical and putting blame on my team for doing some things that are very similar, which is my team literally crapped the bed when it came to the offensive line and the offensive side of the ball for almost a decade. So I'm not even saying that my team is immune from doing stupid crap too. I'm simply saying that overall, when you're giving praise to coaches, and Broncos fans are guilty of it, Raiders fans are guilty of it. Heck, every team in the NFL has fans that are guilty of it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to say, oh, we're great, we're doing fantastic things and all that kind of stuff, you have to then be able to show the players that are being coached up from either zero to hero or from mid to great by that coach on a consistent basis, so that you can then say, oh, that's definitely the coach.
And so it's kind of funny, real quick, Jack.
I want to rebuttal that one part of it, though. Since we're talking last year, so Kuntz was out for the whole year. Christian Wilkins, I think he went down by, game 4 for the whole year. Crosby was, I think he got the high ankle sprain and in about the same week 4, week 5, and then by week 7 he was out. So your 3 main, defensive linemen are gone, and the guys that are coming in are guys they picked up off waivers. So that's what I'm talking about. Those guys came in and filled in reasonably well, and I think Leonard had a good part of that. And then when we get to the second part, when I'm going to talk about all the crap that my team did, then I'm going to talk about guys that did good things, and actually 2 of them are rookie defensive tackles. So go ahead, DZ, jump in.
Just kind of rebuttal, not really rebuttal, but touch on what Richie said about the line coach. The Chargers D-line coach, Mike Elson, is a stud. He is a great coach. But then on the polar opposite side of that is our offensive line coach, Devlin. That guy, he has coached individual players to have really good success, Pro Bowls and whatnot. But overall, like through his tenure, his offensive line rankings have been really subpar. So just already, especially after this last game with our backup hodgepodge of an O-line against the Saints, fans are like, this guy sucks. Like, this guy is a shitty O-line coach. So then people started digging into his kind of, resume. And, yeah, he hasn't had any top 10 O-lines in his career that he's coached, being the coach for. So luckily, one of our old center, Nick Hardwick, is an assistant O-line coach. So I'm kind of hoping he takes over sooner than later, because what I saw against the Saints was pretty shitty. Let's just be honest. But that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's what I felt about my O-line or coach. Ever since he's come on board, I haven't seen anything I've really liked about him.
Right. So here's an example of, back when maybe the team wasn't, well, actually, it was back when my team was ascending, actually. But this is a great example of where the right coaches can take below average to mid-level players and elevate them, and then allow them to kind of run with it on their own and continue that higher level of play. So I'm looking at a guy like Shelby Harris, who bounced around the league from team to team to team to team, didn't really find the right fit, wasn't able to really play all that well for any other team, really, if we're going to be honest, and then landed with the Denver Broncos in our defensive line coach, who was back then an absolute stud, because we always seem to have, as much as the other elements of our defensive line sucked, and trust me, they did. the defensive line on the actual line, they were basically throwing, random dudes from the stands effectively on the defensive line there for a while, and then expecting our defensive line coach to make something out of nothing. And Shelby Harris was a great example of where our defensive line coach took an average guy in Shelby Harris at that point in his career, a guy that was kind of actually on his way out of the league in many regards.
I don't remember him being average, but yeah.
No, but he was not even average. I think he was even below average, if you're going to be honest. He bounced around from team to team and was almost cut, right? And was constantly cut, and turned him into a guy that people actually felt was in, a pretty upper echelon of the defensive line. And that is exactly what I'm referring to, Jack, in terms of the guys that typically, coaches, I'm just saying coaches that are typically seen as that upper tier or guys that are the difference makers and all that sort of thing, are generally able to, with a degree of consistency. Now, there's obviously dudes that are just uncoachable and they just need to get the heck out of the league, right? But generally speaking, the best of them are able to take a reasonable percentage of the guys that come through their doors, and they're able to take below average and make them look average. They're able to take average and make them look above average. And then they're able to take the above average guys and make them bloody elite in the NFL as a result of their ability to coach and get guys to work on their technique. And what I'm getting at with your particular guy that you're referring to there, Jack, on your defensive line, is most of the time when you're dealing with technique, which is what you're referring to, which is, going down into stance when you should be in an upright position, or maybe shifting when you should be remaining straight, or gap discipline, or, any number of these things. Generally speaking, that is a coaching problem. Generally speaking, that is the ability to carve out the individual elements of that individual player's game and identify it specifically, pull them aside, and get them to fix it. And you typically can't, basically try to eat the whole elephant there. If the guy has 3 or 4 issues that need to be worked on, you typically start carving out one issue at a time and having the player address it until they course correct, and then you move on to number 2 and number 3. And
sometimes I noticed, Jack, Richie, real quick, sometimes I notice, especially if you look on the offensive line side, a lot of these guys, and you've even said this, like with tackles, right? They've got to be drafted in this certain area, right? Where we see success,
top 3 to 10, top 3 to 10, yeah,
for like a high percentage of success. But like for the most part, a lot of these other linemen, we don't really hear of them until like a few seasons after they've played a few years. So they're going through development essentially, and then next thing you know, we're like, oh, this guard just got paid $70 million or something, but wasn't a high draft pick. So that's where these teachers, these coaches are super important, and especially consistency, having them there for a while. But then if you've got a bad one, you're going to have a bad nucleus for a while, right? Because it's going to take time to fix all these F-ups from this, that last coach or whatnot. So, yeah, that's really important. And I've heard from a pretty famous head coach that he said his most important hire is the offensive line coach. That when he's starting to build a team, his offensive line coach is his most important, more than an OC or DC. And I thought that was really interesting to hear that.
Sean Payton said the same thing. I've heard Harbaugh say the same thing. I've heard Pete Carroll isn't necessarily as big on that, at least publicly. But a lot of these old school coaches that learned under these old school OGs, the guys that are kind of now in the Hall of Fame now, they all covet their offensive line coaches. Bill Belichick is a great example of that. Bill Belichick pulled an almost 90-year-old dude basically out of retirement to come back and coach his, was it Scarnecchia or something? I can't remember the guy's name. He was the Patriots' old offensive line coach. They let him go for 1 year. Their team sucked. I mean, so badly. Bill Belichick pulled them back for 1 or 2 seasons, and their offensive line rankings skyrocketed as soon as the dude came back in the building. Then he retired, and then they sucked again. So it's a really interesting thing. I completely agree with that sentiment. I think it's so important to have an absolute stellar offensive line coach. And I actually very much disagree that a positional player or positional coach is not important, because there are certain positional coaches that require a certain elevation of stature on the team. And I look no further than, say, Vic Fangio's coaching tree. Some of those guys are phenomenal positional coaches. They truly are. They suck at being a defensive coordinator. But every team they go on, whatever position group that they're coaching, they're able to elevate them. I mean, to even the same guys that were on previous teams with a different coach, they come in and they make them better. And so I completely disagree that positional coaches are not important.
Yeah, I just think they're not on that upper echelon, right? They're not like the first guy you grab. You go after the big fish. That's going to be your trench guys, and then you go coordinators. I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird, seeing some of these coordinators that I've seen in the past, that have been positional coaches becoming a coordinator, or vice versa, because it's. I would love to be in a booth, to be honest, with a DC or an OC, up in the booth or listening to their headsets, because it's got to be an art. These guys are almost like psychic to an extent. and how they call and when to call certain plays. Like the guy I'm talking about, who's an up and comer, and nobody really knows him unless you watch the show or you're a fan of football. But the D coordinator for the Chargers, Jesse Minter, man, like this guy's special, and like I don't know what tree he comes from. I know he was in. I think it might be the Ravens tree. I believe that's where he's a Mike McDonald tree, if I'm not mistaken, who's the head coach for the Seahawks. But this guy's got a bright future, man. I just would love to, be a fly on the wall and hear how they call games and stuff, or game plan for certain situations. It's
absolutely. That would be really also like watching a draft and just seeing what the board looks like and get behind the scenes and see what these guys do. It's the reason why they get paid the big bucks,
right?
Because they know their stuff. Like, oh, if this certain player goes in, or these two players come in, then we need to call this. Just to kind of get that knowledge would be pretty darn interesting.
I'm saying that about Jesse because I've seen him take really low-end draft picks and UDFAs, and these guys are playing lights out. They played lights out last season. They're playing lights out so far in the 2 games that we've had. We've had a couple UDFAs. We had a UDFA this weekend in the name of Eric Rogers that was the highest graded. And look, Richie, I hate using them, but sometimes we got to use them. He was the highest graded player in all of football this weekend in Eric Rogers as a UDFA. Unfortunately, here comes where the Chargers comes in. He got hurt. So it's like this guy balls out, right? He has 2 interceptions, a pick 6, right? Just all this other stuff, and gets hurt and then is on crutches after the game. So you're just like, oh God, like why does this keep happening?
So you asked about Minter.
Yeah.
Minter's coaching. No. So Minter's path was from college to John Harbaugh.
Okay, so Ravens.
With the Ravens for a few years, got elevated to kind of like an assistant within like an assistant D coordinator type. And then from John Harbaugh was transferred to Jim Harbaugh at Michigan as a D coordinator, and has literally followed Jim Harbaugh now from all through college, all through Michigan, and now to the NFL.
So when he was with the Ravens, McDonald wasn't the DC?
No, the DC was Dean Pease, sorry.
Okay.
That's PEES, and that was the 2017 Baltimore Ravens for that season. Now there may have been some changes thereafter, but that was his first season there. And then from 2017 to 2020, Minter was with the Ravens, and then after that, he moved over to Michigan to follow Jim, and he's been with Jim ever since. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's the history lesson of the defensive coordinator for the.
And then another thing that sucks is Jim's trying to get him a head coaching gig somewhere. So it's like, so he's actively like rooting for him to become a head coach, and it's like, well, no, can we just keep these guys for a little while, please? Come on, man.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the sign of a good person.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I agree.
Look,
I'm selfishly as a fan, right?
I totally get it. As a fan, you're like, no, keep the guy. But if you're going to be honest, the sign of a good quality head coach, like as in character, that is a sign of a good character. I have to give him credit. Good for him.
I agree. I definitely agree, man.
So talking about young guys,
we're gonna do a quick game. Hold on, we're going to do a quick breakdown of the games here to kind of keep this as concise as possible to kind of go over as we're reviewing our games. So I want to hear a list of the good, the awful, and then 1 or 2 plays that kind of define the game for each of our teams. So DZ, maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll go down to Jack and go from there.
Okay, well, Taylor Heineke started the game against the Saints and looked just god awful, man. Just passes sailing over tight ends, just not on the same page. And then Trey Lance comes in and looks great, but
yeah,
when you kind of pull back from the situation, I'm not blaming Taylor Heineke, and I'm glad Trey Lance is doing good because it's kind of hyping him up, and maybe he, there's a quarterback competition, maybe they can trade him away or whatnot. But it was Trey Lance was able to utilize his legs because that O-line that they put out, was this hodgepodge of guys because they were short. They didn't want to play any of their starters, even though they had Zion in there playing center or whatnot. But they had guys that they just signed off the street a few weeks ago or whatnot. They had guys playing positions that they've never played. They had Andre James playing, like, I believe it was like left guard or something, or a position he's never played in his life or in his NFL career. And so the O-line looked pretty bad. So for a guy who's a pocket passer like Heineke is, didn't do him any favors, right? And Trey Lance comes in, looks really good, can use his legs. I think he's Trey Lance's stats. Yeah, I don't really have his stats anywhere, but whatever. He just did good, He's done good these last 2 weeks. So, people are like, did Harbaugh fix Trey Lance? And we'll see. But I think he might stay on the team. I think Greg would like to have a dual kind of attack quarterback that's on this roster. So we'll see what happens with him. But Eric Rodgers, like I mentioned, really good. This kid is he's 6'2", 189 pounds, UDFA out of Rutgers, just looked great. And then another UDFA, Marlo Wax, linebacker, inside linebacker. Where did he have his stats? He's just been showing out in camp, last 2 games. I don't really have his stats on me, but and then there's another guy, Caleb Murphy, outside linebacker, that I'm kind of happy is 2 sacks, strip sack on the Spencer Rattler, but let's just be honest, Rattler's he's no bueno, dude. But he's looked really good. And then kind of as a group as a whole, I really am high on these running backs that they've marched out there. Kimani Vidal, Haskins, that's Jim's guy, big dude. They had Rocket Sanders out there. He looked really good. He had an 11-yard touchdown. He bounced it to the outside. It was kind of neat to watch him progress that line. He's like, that's not there. He tried to cut up. That's not there. That's not there. And he had the speed to take it to the outside for a score in the fourth quarter. But on the bad side, Hines Ward, man, might have lost his not Hines Ward. Wow, why did I say that? Miller Hines, because that's his new last name, might have lost his punt return responsibilities. He had 2 muffed punts back to back, and one where he lost the ball. But he ran well, so it was like, dude. So he gave up the game, and then the O-line was just horrible. And then another bad thing is that how that O-line's performed is they're not getting our second-round pick Trey Harris any really good looks, and fan base is kind of panicking about that. But we'll see him with a fingers crossed, hopefully better O-line with Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. So I'm not really too worried about Trey Harris right now. And then outside of I would say the offensive line, I thought everybody else looked good. I'm really impressed, kind of going back to my mentor, how he's made this defense look like, just throwing in guys. They've looked really, really good. Like, it's year 2 under his system. So I can't wait to see what the starters look like. I think they're going to be really good and, might have to carry some games probably, which kind of sucks to say because this first couple games in the season are going to be brutal, but they're going to probably have to hold down the fort while this O-line gets their shit together, essentially. So, yep, other than them winning a game, I don't really care about scores in preseason. Everything else looked pretty good, and it's going to be a long season if you're a Saints fan, I'll tell you that also, even though I think Tyler Shook looked okay. Jack?
Well, I'm going to go back to Cam Miller. You know, a 6th-round draft pick. And he was like, I think 6 for 7, 70 some odd yards. Got a touchdown, which is a fun fact. That bomb that he threw was Cedric Jackson. It's Bo Jackson's, grandnephew.
Oh,
so
wow.
I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't even know it until, I saw it. So that was kind of interesting how, you figure someone as famous as Bo Jackson, being on the Raiders, you think that would have got around, but I feel like, a lot of us probably didn't know it in Raider Nation. So that was interesting, but it's really the first time I actually saw him too. I got to say, after that, again, what I was talking about, it was also a couple players that made really good plays and impressed me was Tonka Hemingway and JJ Pequise, both a 4th rounder, the Raiders in Tonka, and then, JJ in the 6th round as defensive tackles came out and they impressed. I mean, I was like, wow, these guys are like showing more than what the starters were showing. So I was really impressed with that play, and especially with Tonka. He's kind of like a tweener, defensive tackle, defensive edge. They had him kind of do both, and he's just got great vision. I mean, he sees the stuff, and you see him running down the line and making a tackle on a running back, going the opposite way. So that is very encouraging, to say the least. But the last guy that I have, a guy who's never played professional football his entire life, came out there and, doesn't know very much at all and just put the licking on people. And that's Laki Tassi. I mean, he is just a huge man. He's like 6'6", 373 pounds. And, I watched his, highlight tape. And these defensive tackles can't even see around him. And, even on pass plays, when guys are like, taking steps back, he's just, again, he doesn't know the game that well. He's just kind of standing there, and defensive tackle's not pushing him at all. And I sent this play to you. It was like the coolest play. I think it was the 4th or 5th play he's ever done doing professional sports. And you think about it, a lot of these guys have been playing the sport since they're little kids. And then they go to college, and, they are in the NFL, and they've been doing this their whole lives. And this guy's first time going in there, 4th or 5th play in his entire NFL career, and just straight up pancakes a guy. So, I mean, that is just super exciting. I mean, he's just pushing guys around like they're kids. So it was really impressive to see that and to see the potential with a guy like Laki Tassi. If now, like, again, if he can get the coaching, starts learning the actual game of football, and just instead of just being an enormous human being where you can't do anything to him, and then start getting technique put into that, he's going to be somebody to watch out for. And I'm saying that right now.
That's really cool. And that highlight you shared was pretty neat. He freaking pancaked that dude, just laid him down, man, like he was a kid. It was neat. Guys, he's a massive human being. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see the Raiders keep him around and develop a guy like that. Especially, he looks like he's a pretty decent athlete as well.
Well, he's a rugby player from Australia, so I mean, at least he knows how to use those hands. And also what's really cool, he's the international player, so he doesn't even count against the amount of players that you have. But here's an interesting stat: out of all the Raiders' offensive linemen, again, we always take this with a grain of salt, but it's a way that we kind of judge. From PFF, he had the highest rated PFF grade on the entire Raiders offensive line that whole day at 84.6.
Wow.
So a player who's never played in the NFL, or other players have been out there for years, and they're not living up to this guy. So
you reminded me about a player I forgot to mention. And thanks, Jack. I forgot to mention our 3rd round pick, Jamari Caldwell, the kid out of Oregon. He looks to be like the real effing deal, man. So, yeah, I'm excited. And that was the Saints starting O-line he went against, I believe. And that dude was a beast, taking on double teams, pursuing the ball carrier, the whole nine, man. I think he had a sack, if I'm not mistaken, on one of their quarterbacks. I could be wrong, but anyways, you reminded me because you were talking about your offensive line. Totally forgot to mention him. So shout out to Jamari Caldwell, 3rd round pick.
And you're right, Nap. I'm sure they'll probably make a movie at him at some point. So what about your team, Richie?
Well, despite the box score, which was what one can only describe as a routing by my Denver Broncos.
Good old-fashioned ass kicking.
Yeah. I thought that there was some good and some bad. I thought we saw some great things from some players that I really wanted to see step up and show out. And then I thought that there was some very, very concerning things that I was hoping to never see. So I'll start off with the awful. Audric Estime has less and less of a chance at making this 53-man roster. The dude is playing like hot garbage. Sorry, Jack. Thought I'd leave with that just to rip the Band-Aid off, but sorry, but not sorry. I've been saying it forever.
I just wonder why he's not translating. He's so good at Notre Dame.
So Audric has some issues, and I'm only really going into the details here because Jack, I know he, very much likes the kid, watched him at his, college team, if you will. So Estime's problem in translating to the NFL, number one, does not jump and run through the hole with any kind of authority whatsoever, despite the fact that he's kind of a big dude and he should be able to. Okay. That's number one. Number two, his vision sucks. And I mean, it's not that it's just bad. It sucks. And so like white. It's just bad. I don't know how else to describe it. It is just bad. And then number three, for someone that is of his size and stature, he should be able to drag guys for extra yards.
Right.
He is a big, stocky, kind of low gravity, that style of running back, the type of dude that you often see pull guys for an extra yard or two when they're running the ball. And that's an issue with Estime. And I have a number 4 actually for him as well. He genuinely seems to be afraid of contact.
Really? Wow.
I am merely a deliverer of what I see on the tape and on the film. And again, a dude that his shtick is I'm a power runner. As a power runner, your whole game needs to be I run into you, hit you hard, laugh about it, get up and do it all over again on the next play.
Right.
That's got to be your game. You got to play the game that way as a power runner because that's his shtick. That's his deal. He is not speed. He is not this super elusive guy or any of those sorts of things. His thing is I am big, I'm strong, and I move you. And he is literally doing none of them. And I'm concerned for him. I wonder if maybe he, has got maybe just disenfranchised with the Denver Broncos and just doesn't want to be here anymore. Maybe he's like, I hate thin air and I just don't want to be around this nonsense anymore. I don't know. Maybe he hates mountains. I don't know. I honestly just don't know. But
it's so crazy. You guys just drafted him last season, man.
But I'm telling you right now, if you were to ask almost any, whether it be fanalist, actual analyst that does it for a proper living, or even just really dedicated fans, none of them would be upset if he's just not with us anymore.
Do you think he might just be in the wrong system, or do you think he's just not a good running back in the
NFL? Good point. That's a tougher one. I am unwilling to say he's not going to be a good enough running back at the NFL. I would love to see him on a team like the Baltimore Ravens. I would love to. Sorry, let me rephrase. I think he would do better on a team like the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to ever see him on the Baltimore Ravens, but I think he would do better on a team like the Baltimore Ravens.
Sure.
I also think that he would do well in a scheme that is kind of also like maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, where it's like pure power based, and the offensive linemen are more physical and like to power guys off the ball. That's kind of, I think, something that I estimate would potentially do better with.
Yeah,
so
I can see that.
I have a question for you, Richie, and then I do want to answer Jim and 819's question after that. So, are you guys more like a zone blocking, team?
I was just going to
power.
It is funny you bring that up, Jack. That is what many might call a segue. So my Denver Broncos last year were a combination of inside zone and power as a cross, generally speaking. Sean Payton's shtick is generally not outside zone, or what people refer to as zone blocking. So again, for those in the chat that are like, okay, Rich, you're using all these terms, that's fantastic, but in the words of Austin Powers, what does it all mean, Basil? Basically, an outside zone blocking, for those that don't recognize necessarily the difference between all the different blocking schemes at the NFL. If you remember the Denver Broncos back when we won Super Bowl 50, and you remember the Denver Broncos when John Elway was in his entire stint basically within the Mike Shanahan blocking scheme, that whole block of time with Shanahan when he was here, that whole blocking scheme with the shifting and moving and mobile offensive line that are kind of moving guys out of the way for the run blocking, that is an outside zone blocking run scheme. Now, I say that to say this. Sean Payton, for maybe one of the first times in his career, is moving to an outside zone run scheme. Like, it's just, he doesn't normally do it. That's just not his shtick. But what we are seeing with my Denver Broncos is moving back to that style of running the ball and blocking in the run game and in the offense. And so that's an interesting shift for my team. Pun intended, I suppose, because the offensive linemen shift in that scheme an awful lot. But that is what we're going to see from my Denver Broncos this year, it seems. We saw the vanilla version of that blocking scheme all throughout the preseason, including in game 1. I think you're going to see the more intricate combo block version of that as you get into the regular season.
And just really quick, okay, that makes sense. So at Notre Dame, it was more of just a straight power scheme. And when you got like Michael Mayers, Joe Alt, I forgot the right tackle. He got drafted in the 3rd round, and they pretty much used SMA within the tackles. And Jim in 819, I mean, he ran for I think it was 1,300 yards and 23 touchdowns. And he also, split between, there was 2 other backs that were on the team too. So he was definitely a power back, and he's not fast. I will say that, and that's kind of what dropped him in the draft, is that he's not fast as a running back. But yeah, he is a power back, and if he's not looking to take on tackles and hit people, to get that extra yard, wow, it's just odd.
It hurts Jack's Irish heart. Let's just say that it hurts his little Irish heart. His little fighting. Yeah.
Hey, that's Richie, as much as I like Joe Alt on your team too. It's like,
Richie, would you consider your guys' O-line style like a hybrid style then?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like it's one particular, it's multiple different styles, it seems, like that O-line.
Sean Payton is well known NFL-wide for having one of the most complicated offensive playbooks. It's his thing. He doesn't want to be limited. He wants to be able to present complexities intentionally. He wants to be able to run multiple things from the same look. It is not an easy system to learn, but once you get it, you just kind of everything just clicks. And as an aside, some other guys that I want to bring forward. We all know the biggest issue that I have with my Denver Broncos is the offensive center position. And let me tell you, that position did not disappoint about how badly they sucked in that first preseason game. They played like trash. So Luke Wattenberg was the dude that started in for my Denver Broncos in that game. He overblocked and whiffed on blocks. He got blown back a couple times by defensive linemen. He got spun around a couple times by other defensive linemen from the Niners. It was bad. Like it was pretty bad. And you kind of saw that also as a result of how the run game for my Denver Broncos and no Raider Shield family. I did not buy the team, although I wouldn't turn it down if it was offered to me. But the issue that you saw with the Broncos run game was RJ Harvey, and this is what you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know, is he had to or was asked to, and that's what I don't know, to the outside just way too much. He did not run through the tackles. He did not go up the gut. He did not go and find and run through the gaps in the middle of the field. Now, I believe that is in large part because the offensive center sucked. Wattenberg did not own his blocks. Wattenberg did not help with the holes in the middle section of the field. Wattenberg was not helping the guards properly. In addition to that, Ben Powers had one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. The dude was trash. And as much as it pains me to say it, although I'm willing to give some latitude just because I've at least seen him play better and is consistently better, Miners also did not have a great game based on his standard benchmarks. Okay,
I think it's a combination, Richie.
Yeah,
it's a combination because I saw that and I texted you. I was like, what is RJ Harvey doing? And I think it's like, but it's not just RJ Harvey. I watched other rookie running backs all preseason kind of do the same thing. It's like, now we don't know, right? We don't know if he was asked to run, to the sidelines for his plays and cut it up and utilize his speed because he is a fast running back. But it was like every time it was out bouncing it to the outside, and he kind of, in my opinion, had a welcome to the NFL moment because he's like, damn, these dudes are fast too, because they were clipping him right at the sidelines. They were getting him before he could cut up.
Well, he also got stopped in the backfield by a cornerback, which he's probably never had in his life.
Yeah, so right? It is probably a combination of O-line, right? Whoever was that O-line, kind of a welcome to the NFL. Like, dude, you can't bounce everything to the outside. These guys are athletes too. And, they're not UPS drivers now, right? These are real dudes. So, but it was interesting to see, your offense. Then also it's like I said also, about Salah, I'm like, he seemed to get in his bag, game one against you guys with his defense, which I thought was kind of strange.
Yep. And I agree. So there's a lot of things here. Like, you don't know what the coaches have asked these players to do. So you have to be somewhat kind of hesitant to kind of really come down too hard on the players. Yeah. So if, for example, I'm not going to come down on a player if they ran the ball a certain way consistently, because I'm not going to know if that's what they were told to do or if that's what they did on their own. What I am willing to basically say is there's no way Harvey was told to only run to the outside, and there's no way Harvey was told to run certain plays where he was going to get clipped by a cornerback. That I just simply put on Harvey for not being able to make the guy miss, because as a running back of his caliber, who is supposed to be in that upper tier as a running back at the NFL, that simply should just never happen. You should never be able to get brought down by a single cornerback in the backfield. You should be able to see that vision, with your vision and that coming, and you should be able to avoid it, or at least make that for a gain and not get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. So that I actually do put back on Harvey. He's a rookie, though. Guess what? You're going to have that on tape. You're going to go back into the film room. You're going to work with your running backs coach, and you're going to fix it up for next game. And guess what? I'm willing to absolutely give the rookie who played in his very first NFL caliber game on the big screen on the big lights some latitude in that regard. Like, let's put it this way. RJ Harvey's the least of my concerns based on what I saw in this past game. Okay. Like that is not a problem.
I agree, man.
I agree.
Ben Powers, Luke Wattenberg. Yeah, I got some issues there, and I had some issues with them last year, and I was very clear about that actually on the show when we were reviewing the games and everything. That's a problem. They're supposed to be the starting offensive linemen. They did not look it. They did not look great. They could have done so much better, and I actually think that they were a weak point in the run game last year. I think far too many fans, far too many fanalists, and far too many analysts are saying, oh, all of the problem was on the running backs. And I have long since said that it's not just the running backs. It's the offensive linemen not being able to move guys out of the way and be disciplined enough or technique driven enough to force those holes and gaps and force the ability to move their defensive counterpart out the way to allow the run game to work. I have another one. This is the unpopular one. Bo Nix.
Wow.
How
much did he play?
He played for
was it a couple series, 2 series,
2 series, somewhere 2 to 3 series, somewhere in that range. Look, he had poor blocking from the offensive line, and as a result, I'm willing to give him latitude in some regards there because you can't throw the ball if you don't have time to throw. So I'm willing to allow that to, slide, if you will. However, where I'm not willing to let it slide is when you have a second-year quarterback who needs to actually take better care of the ball. Got a guy who needs to be progressing forward in terms of throwing the ball, like the underthrow to Cortland Sutton in the end zone, where you got to actually throw it over your wide receiver and drop it in the bucket. You can't underthrow it and hope that your newly minted wide receiver is going to be able to reach over a guy and grab it. It's the little nuanced elements like that Bo, I expect better. And I'm going to go back to what I said last year. I'm going to go back to one of the challenges that I saw over the course of last year. I think that when Bo is allowed to have more freedom, and that'll happen in the regular season, I believe he will look better because he's going to feel more comfortable because he's not going to feel as kind of pigeonholed in what he can do or not do for that matter.
You're talking
how far was that throw? Like, we underthrew it. How far down the field was it?
Oh, it was a 40 some odd yard throw, give or take. It was not I'm not saying it was an insignificant throw. It was a legit NFL throw, but as a second year guy, someone that you're wanting as a Denver Broncos fan to see elevate in that second year, and frankly, someone who I believe will elevate in his second year, you can't have that kind of stuff on tape. You can't put that on film. You can't allow that to be shown to other teams. And I actually blame a lot of it on shoddy footwork. The dude was not planting his feet properly. He was not shifting his weight properly. And this was supposed to be what Bo Nix worked on all offseason. And I saw a lot of those kind of like rookie body placement, lower body issues that we had over the course in certain segments last season kind of rear their ugly head. And that's got to stop.
I guess my question, that was kind of the knock on Bo, like coming out of college, running kind of the West Coast, mid-range ball, not a lot of, stuff, talking about his arm strength. Does he have the arm strength to consistently make those type of deep balls?
Yes.
He does, for sure.
Yeah, we saw it last season. He's got a really good deep ball. I think you might have got mixed up, Jack, or maybe you are right. Last season, he kind of struggled with the intermediate throws, accuracy-wise, but his deep ball was really nice.
Yeah. Now, those are the guys that I thought sucked, and frankly, or didn't do well at least. I thought Bo just didn't do well. I thought the other ones just were absolutely god-awful. And there's some other ones there as well. We had Savion Jones that struggled, the rookie defensive lineman, and there's a few other guys that were kind of certainly subpar in that regard as well. Now, moving on, because no one likes to only have negative, you also want to look at the guys that balled out and did really well.
Yes.
So I am going to group together a few guys, and I'm going to kind of go pure offense on this one here, and then I'll kind of carve in some additional defensive players for the group here. Pat Bryant, Jaquan Davis, Nick G, because there's not a hope in hell I'm ever pronouncing that last name properly. He's an offensive guard. He killed it.
I got to
Tyler Bidet. Blake Watson.
You look good, man.
Yep. What have I been saying all along on the show, man? What I've been saying all along on the show. That dude is like absolutely just.
I'm glad you mentioned him. He looked really damn good, dude.
Okay.
I liked him. Yeah.
And then Trent Sherfield. He's kind of that dark horse on the offensive side at the wide receiver spot. He really basically threw the gauntlet down and said, "I dare you to cut me." He was awesome. For those who saw the game but didn't recognize the name or the number, he wore number 5, and he was excellent. He really was excellent. He had some great plays, did really well, really locked himself in and really made his name known for a lot of folks that may not have recognized him.
I can't pronounce that last name either.
Nope.
So
Jarjulo.
Yeah. So good luck with that one, my man. So, anyways, those are the guys on the offensive side of the ball, and then I'm going to call it a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball. We have Jonah Ellis, who was unreal in the second and third teams where he played. He looked like he was the second coming of our Nick Benito, who also looked virtually unblockable for a good portion of that game.
Benito looked nice.
He basically said to the front office, "You better sign me now before I'm too expensive where you can't do it." And so Benito was another guy as well. Jonah Ellis is another one. And then another guy who went a little bit under the radar, but if you actually rewatched the games and saw how well he did, Hugh Robinson, who was supposed to only be a special teams guy, the guy that was the best special teams guy that coach has ever coached, and all the things, he looked amazing at his natural position on the edge. Amazing. Absolutely spectacular. In fact, so good that I would like to see your starting edge be for my Denver Broncos, Jonathan Cooper and Benito. And then I'd like to see my second string guys, the kind of the rotational guys in that rotation, to be Q Robinson and Jonah Ellis. Those are my top 4 on the edge for my Denver Broncos. And the fact that you're literally looking at a second-year guy and a rookie as your, second string / starters on the edge, and that they're good enough to be in that position at the NFL, I'd say you're drafting pretty darn well. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't think you could really ask for much better than that, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. Yeah. And I think that says a lot for the team. And I also have one other guy who is Tillman. I really like Tillman, but I think that Tillman is going to eventually be the odd man out, because Tillman, I think, is hitting kind of the upper end of where he's going to be able to get to. And frankly, I think the Broncos would be better to trade him and get I think they're better off to get draft picks from him, because I think the Denver Broncos are going to need some additional picks in this upcoming draft to backfill some of the positions that they're going to be deficient in next year, such as tackles and offensive center and that kind of thing. So I think getting that extra draft capital, I think, is going to be important. And we're going to have some really tough decisions anyway. So I think we have some opportunity to withhold guys, trade them, and get the draft capital for them as well. And then two other guys I did want to bring forward as, real legit dudes that I was looking forward to in the game. That was Turner and what was the last name of the guy? He was the inside backer, and I just gapped on his name. 1 moment, please. We had...
Starts with the S.
No, it was Kareem Reed. So Jordan Turner and Kareem Reed, they're both undrafted free agents at the inside linebacker position. Kareem Reed had an interception, and he absolutely killed it. He was all over the place. He was tackling guys left and right. He was awesome. Turner had a low-key great game as well, like literally a low-key great game as well. Savion Jones, Paul, I'm going to bring up that name. He was, for me, when I rewatched all the film and all the tape, he was right in the middle for me. And this is why. Savion Jones had 2 or 3 plays that he killed it. Like, he literally absolutely killed it. He had that batted pass at the line of scrimmage, if I'm not mistaken. He had some other plays that he played really well. But then he also had a handful of plays on the flip side of that same script, particularly in the run game where he got completely boxed out and he got the ball run all over him. So he had some really good and some really bad. And I think it's really important that he continue to grow from that. And I think that our coaching staff will allow him to grow from that and force him back on the field so he can show that he can do better. But we need to see him do better in next week's game against the Cardinals.
Do you know if you guys are playing starters again, or you probably don't know?
I suspect the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Trying to look up the Broncos. I would not trade him.
I was actually thinking some similar things, Biggie. The challenge that the Broncos are going to get into is going to be your left tackle is aging, your right tackle is aging and often hurt, and you need an offensive center. And then you're also deficient as a true penetrating or rushing interior D lineman right up the gut that's kind of like a bigger body. And typically the combination of especially the left tackle, right tackle, and then the D tackle that is at that level that I'm talking about, we've had this discussion on the show pre-draft and everything. Those guys are often found within the upper tier of the draft, that top 20 range kind of thing. And so this is an interesting conundrum for the Broncos where Sean Payton has got an ascending team where he started to build a culture and he started to get draft that we've actually hit on in our drafts for the Denver Broncos, which is going to put us at a disadvantage actually in terms of being able to replenish those types of players that need to be picked that high in the draft to be typically successful based on, we'll call it traditional metrics. How's that?
It's like it's the Pittsburgh Steelers problem right now, essentially. 9-8 every season. Kind of hard to replenish some of those, top tier spots.
Correct.
I guess that's where you got free agency.
Correct. And then you end up having to overpay for free agents.
I think you guys can probably, depending on who's out there, probably get a free agent to come in because your team's a destination spot. I mean, you got all the other pieces in place. I mean, it could end up, like Kansas City where they have problems, getting free agents to come over, or like there's just nobody out there, I should say. But
or they used
I
to.
wonder who would be out there, in the future versus, having a trade like a Nick Benito to get that first round. And we've talked about this. Those pure left tackles, they're gone in the top 10 picks. So you would definitely have to give up a lot of capital to move up to be within the top 10 to get one of those guys.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying a guy like, say, Tillman, for example. I don't think Ellis is going anywhere. He's too new on the team. Tillman we've had for a little bit. He's kind of started to elevate himself. He is playing very well. He's a guy that we might be able to acquire a decent pick for to kind of get ourselves back into some kind of like true team building draft capital based on where we got him. And so that's my point, right? Which is we're going to be in a tough spot next season we need to pay guys So, for example, you either trade Benito or you choose to pay him, right? And you're going to be paying him some pretty top dollar capital at that point, which will hinder your ability, Jack, to your earlier suggestion. It will hinder your ability to bring in a top tier left tackle or right tackle to backfill the talent you're going to end up losing.
Nav, you didn't watch Charger football last year. You didn't know who Justin had to throw to. So that stat goes out the window. He had dudes dropping balls all season.
So did Bo Nix, actually. That's another interesting stat, which is there's a few other elements that kind of go into that. So, for example, one stat that you're not mentioning there, so you're talking completion rate. One stat to look at is catchable balls. What was the catchable ball percentage of both, say, Justin and Bo Nix, and how many of those balls were then dropped by their respective wide receivers?
QJ had.
In fact, if we're going to be honest, as much as it pains us to say it aloud, Pat Mahomes had a massive issue with that last year. He had a massive problem with his wide receivers dropping key passes in key elements of games. And so I think that that's something that is often overlooked when it comes to simply looking at quarterback stats.
Mahomes throws behind the line of scrimmage more than any quarterback I've seen recently. So
yeah,
they're dropping balls. Whatever.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. So those are the kind of the mixed group of players that I have there. And Jack, I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to kind of call it out again here on the show in terms of my running back room, in terms of for the Denver Broncos, I think it's going to be Dobbins, Harvey, and then this is where it gets real interesting in terms of the other guys on the team.
McLaughlin and Batty?
No, I think it's going to be Watson and Batty.
Whoa.
Well, sorry, he goes by Bidet.
Bidet, right? Yeah.
But if he wants to name himself after a toilet, that's his choice. But
that'd be an interesting jersey, that's for sure.
Yeah. So my thought process is that Tyler Bidet has now shown in 2 consecutive preseasons, so he's put enough tape out there for other teams to see him, that he will not be a guy that will be able to, accidentally keep on the practice squad again. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Nah, he'll get swooped.
He'll get swooped by another team.
Yep.
And so I think that you have to keep him on the 53-man roster. And then the other interesting thing about Blake Watson is 2 things, actually. Number one, Blake Watson is a more sure-handed wide receiver and running back than Jaleel McLaughlin is. And he's also now shown that he is capable of running the ball and having that burst and explosiveness, which is really what Jaleel McLaughlin is kind of known for, right? So you got Blake Watson, who's got the wide receiver kind of Darren Sproles running back role down, which is really the type of role that Jaleel McLaughlin would kind of be wanting to fill. But I just think Blake Watson actually kind of just plays the role better because he can do just a little bit more and isn't pigeonholed into only running the ball.
Different flavor.
Exactly.
That's a Sean Payton's type of running back right there.
Exactly. So again, just to kind of reiterate, I see this as Dobbins, RJ Harvey, Tyler Bidet, and Blake Watson as the Broncos 4 running backs that they run into for the 2025 NFL season. And this is barring any major earth-shattering, play that's put on tape in a preseason game 2 or 3. But given what I saw out of what I'm seeing out of camp, and given what I saw in preseason game 1, I think that's going to be a pretty hard running back room to not run into, pun intended, into the 2025 season.
So I got a question for you guys, kind of, since we talked about, the previous games, the games that are coming up, who are you most excited to see for your next preseason game, and who are you guys playing?
I'm playing the Cardinals for Broncos.
Rams. So we have to travel super far.
That's right here.
Yeah. I would say someone I'm excited. I want to see some of these guys like carry over, to the next game. I don't want them to be like one-hit wonders, Like, for example, Marlo Wax, he had 8 tackles and 1 sack. That UDFA linebacker. I want to see him kind of carry that over to the next game. Maybe get, doesn't have to be as much, right? But, show that he is, because some of these guys are fighting for the 53 and they're making a good case for it, because there's a lot of these guys that were brought in the offseason that haven't been able to make it on the field. So some of these UDFAs or these rookies that are playing kind of out of their minds right now, a Nico Reed or a Marlo Wax, Caleb Murphy is making making a really strong, what's that word I'm looking for? But he's making a really strong, help me out here, Jack.
Impression going.
What's that? I don't know, but he's just making it tough on the coaches, because he's a guy I can see making the 53. He came in last season. He's one of these, this Harbaugh regime really loved Vrabel's guys from the Titans. And so we've got a bunch of these guys, and we got this guy like mid last season. He came in, I think, filled for some injuries, and he had a hell of a game last week, and he's making a case to kind of jump on that edge room, so I want to see these guys carry it over the next game, and this will be going against a much better team depth-wise than the Saints, the Rams, McVays. So, yeah, just carry over. I don't really care about scores or anything like that. And then let's see if some of these young offensive linemen can have a better game, because, man, they didn't do their quarterbacks any favors, or their wide receivers who are trying to get looks either. So just probably some of that, some more of that stuff. And no injuries. No effing injuries.
No injuries, right?
Jesus. Getting so tired of it, man.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, GZ. I'm looking for kind of the same thing. I did leave a couple guys off. I forgot about earlier.
Lobby, man. You left out Lobby.
I did leave off Lobby, and actually I have him on my list. But, we kind of started talking about coaches and got my mind turned. Yeah, so, Lobby, he had a great game. So I like to see him keep going, But he did this last year. He looked great, in the preseason, and only got the 1 carry that we've talked about over and over, which you don't need to talk about. Jamal Adams, was a guy. I'm kind of excited to see, what he brings.
He looked really good.
He did look good close to the line of scrimmage. I think, this fits him well. So I like the fact they brought him over. But if you go on like the Raider, I think it's Raiders.com, and you go to their depth chart, they also have him. I mean, I don't know if it's a typo or what. They got him listed as a second cornerback. And I'm like, what? You mean after they got rid of Bennett, for Booker? But I was just looking at it today, and I'm like, good, okay, why is he listed as a cornerback when he's not good at coverage? So he's better when he's on the line of scrimmage. And then I got to give a shout out also to another guy that I forgot about. Oh my God, what's his name? He's a UDFA, and he's a slot corner. Give me 1/2 second. I didn't write his name down, but I meant to write him down earlier. But he's a small guy. He's not typically the Pete Carroll, type of player, but he looked good. So, and I will say the number one guy that I'm excited to see, just because of what he did in his first game, is Laki Tassi. I hope he gets a bigger run in this game instead of just playing in the fourth quarter. I just want to see what this kid can do. He's fun. He's exciting to watch.
That's a D lineman, right?
No, Laki Tassi is that offensive lineman.
He's the offensive lineman. He's the guard.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the one I sent you the video on.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying about special teams guys, Richie's got a guy on his team that was like a special, not special, preseason, these preseason gems that kind of disappear in the season. Richie's got a guy on his team that was one for the Chargers a few seasons ago, Michael Bandy. everybody thought he was like the second coming of Julian Edelman, or just another insert white receiver name here. And then during the season, it was like where did he go kind of thing. So, you want to see these guys carry it through multiple games, I guess, and that's what the coaches are looking for as well, right? Make that 53.
Exactly, just what Richie said earlier. You got to stand out to do it if you're coming, so far down on the depth chart. And that UDFA is what Gritty Vance was the kid's name. So, and I keep hearing stuff about him. So I'm like, all right, Nav, yeah, Alex Bachman, he's there too, but I can't name the whole team. But we'll see if Bachman makes it. It'll be interesting with him and Malott, because I feel like it's going to come down to those two. Alex Bachman is a better player. He's been in the league longer. Right now, Malott looks lost, but that's to be expected because he's going from a quarterback to a wide receiver that he's never played before, and he's not even getting the snaps on the special teams really. So, but if you put a Malott, on the practice squad, I'm sure someone's going to pick him up. But you got to have the expectation that he's a project, anyways.
Yeah. So Cardinals, Niners, Rams next week. I just can't handle injuries on any starters, so I doubt we're going to see starters out there for the Chargers. But yeah, I'd like to see these guys carry over and do well. Some of these rookies, especially these UDFAs balling out, man. Good for them, right? Like, there's some guys that we drafted. There's a guy, our 7th round cornerback, Trick Bridges or whatever. He looked like ass last week against the Saints. So his job might be on the line, essentially. There's no guarantee. And we saw it the first year Harbaugh took over, some of the draft picks, that were drafted in the rounds. I think they cut like 2 of them. I think he was like, even one of his Michigan boys, he was like, oh, see you later. It didn't work out. So
interesting. I always kind of like it when, you get your starters to go out there just to prepare, mentally, the mindset, whatever your pregame rhythm's going to be, and, run that one series just, to get you thinking that way.
I'm hoping that's our last preseason game they can do that, because we didn't see it last year and it looked really rough from the start of the season, and we can't afford to start rough in Brazil against the freaking Chiefs, man. So, Shield, it's Joel.
Nab's a Notre Dame guy too. He knows who he is.
Paul, to answer your question, a streetwalker.
Trick Wheeze. It's like Trick Wheeze Bridges. It's a
right. So that sounds like one or both of his parents worked in a profession that may be the oldest in the books.
You said it, not me.
And we'll just leave it at that. How's that? So, in terms of my in terms of my team and who I'm really wanting to see in preseason game 2, I'll start on some of the defensive guys, and I'll kind of like work kind of around back up to the offense. I'd like to see Jordan Turner and Kareem Reed continue to play the way that they did in the first preseason game, and perhaps even elevate themselves further. I'd also like to see them, one or both of them, actually replace Justin Strnad with the ones on the first team defense. I hate Strnad. I want him gone. And I really I hate him. I absolutely detest the guy. He plays like crap.
Him and Estime can pack their bags, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm done with both of them. They can go. The way I'm looking at it is this. If I'm looking at 2 UDFAs and they look awesome on the field and they're literally in like their first ever game that they've ever played in and they're looking great, and if they can start stacking those same games kind of week after week, I would much rather take the upside of the UDFA guys that are going to be cost controlled and perhaps even way higher ceiling than Strnad. I already know what I have in Strnad. He is a piss poor starter, makes really bad tackling choices and angles, but plays special teams well. So I'm pretty sure that between one or both of those dudes that I just listed, Kareem Reed and Jordan Turner, that we can find some replacement for Sternad between one of them. And frankly, I'd rather keep both of them, especially given the fact that we have Singleton, who is not well, although he's going to be back and fine for the regular season. And we have Dre Greenlaw, who seems to, be falling back into his old injured ways. Yeah. And so we need to get that depth on the inside backer position. And based on how both of those dudes play, I would like to see them continue to play that way to force themselves to be kept on the 53-man roster. And also, just as an aside, one or both of those guys would help continue my Denver Broncos streak of having undrafted free agents on the 53-man roster for I can't even remember the number of years, but it's like 26 out of 27 years or something crazy. So
wow.
Anyways, those are two on the defensive side. And then I have almost exclusively offensive players in the remaining groups that I have on my list. I'd like to see Caleb Lohner, the basketball convert, used more and more in the offensive side of the ball for my Denver Broncos in the second and third preseason games.
That's a tight end, right?
He's like a 6'7", 260 some odd pound, 270 pound tight end.
It's like your 7th round pick or something.
Yeah, 7th round pick. You saw him on the field actually a fair amount in the first preseason game. The dude just looked like a mammoth human being at the tight end position. And he actually had some pretty good blocking plays, which is pretty impressive given the fact that he's a basketball convert and a very recent basketball to football convert as well. So to his credit, I actually thought he played quite well given his lack of experience. Not so different from your rugby convert there, Jack. Really, really impressed with how he looked on the field. I'd like to see him more involved in like the passing game on the offense, not just in the blocking game on the offense. I'd also like to see Sherfield to see if he can replicate the play that he had in preseason game 1, or if it was an anomaly and an outlier. I think it's actually who he is, and good for him. But that is certainly going to make the wide receiver position for my Denver Broncos an absolute logjam. Like that's gonna be so rough.
I have a lot of crying in my house because.
And then I have two other guys on the offensive side of the ball, and then an obvious one. So I have Jaquan Davis, my favorite wide receiver, who is a UDFA, had a great game, generally speaking. He was open, he blocked well, and he had a single target, which he caught for 14 yards, which is, if you're targeted and you do well, you should in turn kind of get more play time. I'd like to see him elevated in game 2. I think he will be because I'm hearing a lot of really good things about him from camp. And then I want to see Clay Webb moved into the center position. He did not do well at guard, but I want to see him moved back into center to see if we have something there to add for depth just because of the lack of depth at the center position. And again, for those who are new to the show, he is Gatorade Boy from college, or Gatorade with a little extra, who is on our team there. Sean Payton does seem to really like him, thinks he's a high character guy, but he's obviously going to be a developmental player given how he played in preseason game 1. And last but not least, Bo Nix. I'd like to see him bounce back. I'd like to see Bo Nix put the first preseason game behind him and show that true next step that I would like to see from a franchise quarterback in the first game of preseason. I want to see him make better choices. I'd like to see him read the field better. And given the fact that the 49ers were supposed to be quite a substantial step down from where they had been in years past, I expected better in preseason game 1. So I'd like to have Bo prove and show that he can put a bad game behind him and come back out and have a strong game his second go round in the preseason game 2.
Makes sense. He's just knocking off a little rust.
And I'm fine with that, but I want you to show me. I want you to show me that you're able to, take the footwork issue and course correct. I want to see you making proper throws to your wide receivers so that you're not underthrowing and kind of hoping that they can kind of haul it in through another player. So little quirks like that I'd like to see some benefits from. But hang on, we've got ourselves a super chat here. Let's go ahead and bring this up. We have Raider Shield family bringing in a $5 super. Very happy with Jamal Adams. Jack, that dude was playing as he has always supposed. Number 2B, flying all over the field and defended a few passes.
Hey, thank you for the super there, Nap.
Jamal Adams had like
He did.
almost a 90 PFF grade and was like had zero negative stuff in the run. So he played exceptionally well at that linebacker position. And it looks like from the pictures I saw, it looks like he did gain weight. Because remember, I kind of was like saying, I'm like, you know, he's only like 212 or whatever they had him listed. But it looks like he has gained some weight for his linebacker role.
Let's take a look. Actually, I looked up like who's the biggest guy in the NFL. It's Desmond Watson, 464 pounds. I was just kind of checking to see if Laki Tazi was on that or not.
Yeah, but that guy you just mentioned, I don't think he's even playing right now. He's just walking.
No, they're making him lose weight.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing and sad. Like just some of the stuff I've seen out on the interwebs is.
Oh, that in the way of the depth chart, I apologize. It wasn't Raiders.com. It was ESPN.com. And I'm looking up right now. They got him listed at ESPN. They got him still at 213. So you're right on the button there, DZ.
Yeah,
hopefully he has put on some weight.
I suspect he's probably in around the 220 mark.
He's got to be, man.
Yeah. Like, for example, they still have Cortland Sutton listed at the same weight. I don't know if you saw him in the Kay Adams interview.
He looked jacked.
He's absolutely just ripped.
Yeah.
And his legs are like that big. He's got legs like a running back now. So he's definitely not the same weight that he was when he came into the season last season, and they haven't updated his weight at all. So I would seriously say take that weight with a grain of salt. Really, the only time you're going to get a true updated weight from a player is when they're coming off of like injuries and stuff, where they have to reweigh them properly for the NFL, or when they're coming from college into the NFL, where they reweigh them properly, quote unquote, for the combine, to make sure that their weight is properly adjusted.
Well, that's like a surprising thing, you know, for one of my players, you know, for the Raider Nation is Dylan Parham. I mean, he was playing around 310, and they got him at 332 now. I mean, that's a substantial amount of weight to put on your body.
Yeah, well, that's why that 400, that's why you can't play the guy at 400. The guy's just got too much body weight put over his skeleton. His skeleton won't be able to handle it getting hit as well as carrying that weight. Like, you're just asking for an injury.
Yeah, that dude looks super unhealthy, man. But, you know, Bucks took a gamble on him. We'll see if it pays off. They might be the last ones laughing.
Well, and, you know, that was Laki Tazi last year when he played, you know, for, you know, Australia rugby. He was over 400 pounds, and he's lost a bunch of weight. I think he was around like 440. So kind of the same thing.
That's crazy, man. Jeez,
yes, but Jack, he went from 430, 440, somewhere in that range, and brought his weight down to like 330-ish.
No, Laki Tazi's 373.
Okay, so he hasn't quite brought it down that much, but so he's 370, so that's fine.
But he doesn't look fat. No, I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't look fat.
Let's just say you wouldn't call him slim.
No, I wouldn't call him slim. I call him a monster.
yeah. But the point being is that a dude that's over 400 pounds, like in the mid 400s at that, which is where he was playing rugby at and everything, you run a risk at that weight, even playing rugby, where you're going to have some pretty bad joint issues if you continue playing like that. And so the fact, and where I'm going with this, is that he dropped almost 40 to 50 pounds, and he did that in a very disciplined manner. That just shows a dude that has self-control over how he does things and why he does it, which means he does things with intention. that is a really bad thing for the rest of our division, but a really good thing for your Las Vegas Raiders, because that just shows that he has the discipline to apply himself to the professional sports and frankly to the NFL, which is what you're going to need for a guy like that. And I'm not happy. We'll just put it that way. I am not happy.
I'm stoked. Like I said, he's my number one guy I want to look at. So when we get off the live, go back to that video I sent you guys in that pancake. Just look at the body frame. He's like I say, he's not looking fat. But you're right, he's not slim. But he's an offensive lineman. None of those offensive linemen are looking slim.
No.
Except Joel, but
All right, yeah, Joel,
Well, and
he's a special player.
McGlinchey looks slim.
Joe just looks like a giant person. Like he doesn't. It's just weirdly weird.
Like McGlinchey looks like a dude that you'd walk down the street and say, that's a really big dude. But you're not going to look at him and say, oh, wow, that's a football player.
I wish somebody had a picture that would show
Like
it.
McGlinchey's actually, like, proportionately speaking, I would say for a football player is actually quite slim. Like he's not a large looking human being relative to, some of these other guys that we're talking about, especially on the offensive line.
Well, if I recall, he's what, 6'4", 6'3", if I'm correct.
McGlinchey?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen him at Notre Dame, so.
Mike McGlinchey, rough weight. Just give me a sec. I think he is, well, they're calling him 6'8".
McGlinchey? Really?
They're calling him 6'8". And that's what I'm saying, is that he is an abnormally, like, physically tall human being.
I just don't remember him being that tall.
Yeah, he's 6'8".
It's been a few years, but wow.
He's listed at 6'8" and 315. And so you would typically say, oh, 315, that's a really big guy. Not when you're stretching that over a 6'8" frame. That's think of the dudes that you're talking about. You're talking about other guys that are 6'4" and 6'5". And they're weighing in at 330.
Yep.
McGlinchey's 6'8", weighing in at 315. Like that's a pretty slim dude for that height.
That is, because Rashawn Slater was 6'4", 330. So, damn, 6'8", 315, yeah.
Like I realize that 315 does not sound like a light person, but everything is relative to the size of the human being in terms of height that you're talking about. And it's just one of those things. And, when you see McGlinchey, he just looks like an abnormally tall person. Like he just looks like just like a very large human being. Like you said, just a really big human. He just looks like a really tall human. Like, someone like stretched out a normal sized person to just be really tall. He does not look like your prototypical guy that you see, some of these linemen that you see, they're just like, just beasts that are walking around that you're just wondering how did you grow to be that size?
It's the land of the giants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. I was saying this to somebody in a chat the other day. I'm like, dude, these guys are just giants. They're not normal, man. Like Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt, like them standing next to each other, and then here comes little Lad McConkey walking next to him, and it's just like he's at their waist. It seems like it's just it's like, how is this? How did this guy come out of somebody? You know what I mean? Like somebody created this monster. How is that possible? It's wild. Some of these dudes.
Yeah, it's like Alt and Colton Miller. They're kind of similar. They're both around. I think Colton's 6'9", 324, 325, somewhere in there.
Seeing a lot more of these 6'8" and 6'9s. Some of these guys coming out. I think there's like 2 rookies that we have that are like 6'9" tackles, but once again they're hurt, so we don't know what they're doing. They're physically unable to perform list or whatever.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be the show where it's like every person we talk about on the Chargers, they're hurt.
Yeah, that's.
So, real quick before we wrap up the show, aside from injuries and obviously DZ, based on his comments and what we know so far, can't really afford any more of those. What is the one thing you don't want to see happen in this upcoming preseason game for your team?
I'll make it super quick. 13 missed tackles.
Oh, okay. That's a good one, Jack.
Fair enough.
That's got to be my number one. And if I had to say a number two, just better blocking.
Okay. DZ, what about you?
Definitely, I'll piggyback off of him. Definitely better blocking because, that blocking is for these guys, these pass catchers, these running backs, these guys that are trying to, one, get reps, or two, make a damn team, right? So everything revolves around that offensive line. So I just want to see better blocking or a better plan going into this for these pass catchers, some of these guys dropping balls in preseason games, go make a catch, man. Figure it out. Especially some of these UDFA guys, try to make the team ball out. And then you kind of said it, Richie, obviously we're not going to say it, but I don't want to see any injuries. And I know you said not to say it, but that goes with the Los Angeles Chargers.
That could be your number one right there. And Ardell, that was funny, dude.
Yeah.
Ardell said he doesn't want to see ASC 12.
Oh, I saw that. That was funny. That was super funny. So for me, the one thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see the same quality of blocking as I saw from the offensive line. I want to see the offensive line for my Denver Broncos remember that they have a job, and that is to move other humans out of the way. As we kind of indicated early in the show, offensive linemen are kind of those one position group that a multitude of head coaches covet. Because of the coaching and the just what you require from the offensive line, because it's kind of the thing that makes the drink work, right? It's the base of all the things for your team. Your offensive linemen allow your defensive line to actually stay off the field and rest. Your offensive line also allow your running backs to get the yardage that they need to get down the field. And your offensive line also keep your quarterback upright so that they don't get hurt and end up in IR. Or other things as well. And they also give your quarterback the time to throw the ball to the wide receivers, which allow you to capitalize on the beneficial rules in today's NFL. So there's a whole lot of things that are absolutely mission critical, and they all surround the offensive line. So I just simply need them to play better. I want to see more from them. I want to see better play from them. I want to see them run block better, and I want to see them pass block better. If my team is going to have a successful season in 2025 and actually take the step forward that the team expects us to take and that fans expect the team to take, we need to see better run blocking. We need to see the center of the offensive line, guard, center, and guard, actually block people and move folks out the way.
Ditto.
Thank you, Matt. We'll check it out.
Ditto. I want to, this guy, ASAP. Wait, no, not that one. Wherever he had it, he had a comment up here. Yeah, that one. I 100% agree with you. So this is the guy who's going to be taking over the right tackle spot is Pipkins, who's everybody in the division is familiar with because he was. But for this system, I'm this is red flags because while he's serviceable and average at pass blocking, but to run this scheme, going into year two where it didn't work last season to the way they wanted it, and now they're got this reshuffled line, this could derail a lot of this. What they have planned going this season is Trey Pipkins is not a people mover. He's a pass blocker, and albeit at an average one at that, So, yeah, man, I'm not too thrilled about it, but happy that we still have him on the team, I guess, if that makes anybody feel any better. But yeah,
well, you need him because there are too many guys hurt.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, that'll do us for the show this week. We have obviously a whole ton of news we're going to talk about next week with the preseason game and results from this week's game coming up. All of our teams obviously play different folks. I believe do you all play who plays the Niners next week? Is that you, Jack? Like not next week,
Right
the
here.
week after?
No,
I
this
play
week.
the week after.
Oh, this week.
Yep.
Is it this week?
Yep.
Okay.
This week. That's why I'm wearing the shirt.
Great. So we'll have some common news to kind of compare notes and stuff between your first preseason game and the Broncos' first preseason game to kind of see how the two different teams looked. That's actually kind of an interesting element of the show here that we'll be able to get into. So next week we'll talk about the results. Again, if certain players continue to stack those preseason games, especially in the undrafted and kind of roster bubble guys, makes life really interesting at this time of year for all of us. And ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side's the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what? This is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.